Why do we even need the FCC anymore? After decades of political battles, and with recent Supreme Court rulings stripping its powers, you might wonder if this agency still serves a purpose. Today we'll break down what the FCC does, why it's controversial, and why both political parties still cling to it. When you hear the letters FCC, what comes to mind? For most people, it's a single controversial role, the speech police. They think of fleeting moments of broadcast television that sparked national debate, or comedians whose routines pushed the boundaries of decency. The Federal Communications Commission has certainly played that part, policing the public airwaves for what it deems indecent. But to focus only on that is to miss the vast, invisible, and far more critical work the agency does every single day. The truth is, the FCC is less of a content moderator and more of the fundamental operating system for our entire modern communication infrastructure. Its most important jobs are the ones you never see, the ones that work so well you take them for granted. The FCC's primary and most essential function is managing the radio spectrum. This spectrum is a finite, invisible natural resource, a silent ocean of frequencies that carry information through the air. Without careful management, this ocean would be a chaotic mess. Imagine a world where your favorite radio station could suddenly start broadcasting on the same frequency as the local airport's control tower, or your Wi-Fi signal was constantly being jammed by a neighbor's garage door opener. This is the chaos the FCC was created to prevent. It acts as a traffic controller for the airwaves, assigning specific lanes to different users. These lanes are crucial for everything. They ensure that pilots can communicate with air traffic control without interference, that police and fire departments have reliable channels during an emergency, and that broadcasters can deliver their signals clearly to your home or car. But it goes so much deeper. That same spectrum management allows your smartphone, your GPS, your Bluetooth headphones, and countless other wireless devices to coexist and function seamlessly. It's the foundation of a multi-trillion-dollar wireless economy. Beyond preventing chaos, the FCC has a direct mandate to protect public safety. The agency ensures that every American has reliable access to 911. As technology shifted from landlines to mobile phones, the FCC mandated the creation of Enhanced 911, or E911, which helps emergency services pinpoint a caller's location, a complex technical challenge that saves thousands of lives. It also oversees the National Emergency Alert System, which allows the president to address the nation within minutes and enables state and local authorities to send urgent warnings about severe weather, amber alerts, or other imminent threats. The FCC also acts as a referee for the massive telecommunications industry. It enforces rules on the companies that provide your phone and internet service. This includes leading the fight against illegal robocalls, a persistent nuisance the agency tackles with new technology and hefty fines. It also reviews proposed mergers between giant telecom companies, weighing whether such deals would harm competition and lead to higher prices or worse service for consumers. And it oversees programs aimed at bridging the digital divide, working to ensure that even rural and low-income communities have access to affordable, high-speed broadband. This creates a fascinating political paradox. Administrations from both parties often come into office with vastly different ideas about the role of government. Some want to deregulate and let the market rule, while others want to strengthen consumer protections. But even the most ardent anti-regulation politicians rely on the FCC's core technical and public safety functions. A modern economy simply cannot function without a managed spectrum. Public safety would be compromised. For this reason, the FCC endures. It's not a question of whether we need it, but rather how much power it should have. Without it, the invisible framework that supports our connected world would collapse, returning our airwaves to a state of pure chaos and putting our safety at risk. Here's the paradox. Print and the internet enjoy full First Amendment protection, but broadcast TV and radio get junior varsity rights. Why? Because over-the-air broadcasting uses a limited public resource, the airwaves. Courts have said that makes it fair game for closer regulation. But with the rise of cable, streaming, and the internet, this old scarcity argument looks weaker than ever. As television entered its golden age, a new technology emerged that didn't fit the established regulatory model: cable. Unlike broadcasting, which used the finite public airwaves, community antenna television, or KTV, ran on privately owned coaxial cables strung along utility poles or buried underground. This fundamental difference threw a wrench into the legal framework built on spectrum scarcity. If a company builds its own infrastructure, doesn't it have the same First Amendment right as a newspaper to choose what content it carries? This question would ignite decades of legal battles, pitting the FCC's mandate against the free speech rights of a powerful new industry. The core conflict was this: were cable operators common carriers like phone companies, obligated to carry all comers, or were they electronic publishers, with full editorial control over their channels? The answer would define the future of television. The FCC's first major confrontation with this new medium came in 1968. The Commission worried that cable systems, by importing popular channels from distant major cities, would fragment local audiences and threaten the financial viability of the small, local broadcast stations it was sworn to protect. But did the FCC even have the authority to regulate an industry that didn't use the airwaves? The Supreme Court answered with a cautious yes. The court granted the FCC what's known as ancillary jurisdiction, the power to regulate cable, but only when it was reasonably ancillary to its primary mission of regulating broadcast television. This ruling was a foot in the door. It established that the FCC could police cable, not with the sweeping power it had over broadcasters, but with a limited authority to protect the existing broadcast system. Armed with this new power, the FCC created one of its most controversial regulations: the must-carry rules. These rules required cable operators to dedicate some of their channels to carrying all the local broadcast stations in their area, for free. From the FCC's perspective, this was essential to ensuring the survival of local news and public affairs programming. But cable operators saw it as an infringement on their business and their First Amendment rights. They argued that being forced to carry channels they didn't choose turned them from editors into mere conduits, taking up valuable space that could be used for more profitable national networks. In 1985, a federal court agreed. The D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals struck down the must-carry rules, declaring that the scarcity doctrine simply didn't apply to cable. The court affirmed that cable operators deserved a high degree of First Amendment protection over their editorial decisions. But Congress wasn't ready to let local television die. In the 1992 Cable Act, lawmakers reinstated the must-carry rules, setting the stage for a definitive Supreme Court showdown. The resulting case was so complex it went before the court twice. In 1994, the court decided the rules were content neutral. Their purpose wasn't to favor the speech of local broadcasters, but to achieve a structural goal: preserving a free, over-the-air television system for all Americans. 3 years later, the court delivered its final verdict. It upheld the must-carry rules, but on entirely new grounds. The justification was not spectrum scarcity. Instead, the court accepted Congress's argument that without these rules, a significant number of broadcast stations would fail, leaving the 40% of Americans who didn't have cable without access to local news and emergency information. The Turner decision cemented a new, two-tiered system of First Amendment jurisprudence for electronic media. Broadcasters remained at the bottom with the weakest free speech protections due to the scarcity of the airwaves. Cable operators occupied a middle ground, enjoying more editorial freedom than broadcasters, but still subject to government regulation in the name of important public interests. This delicate, and at times contradictory, balance between private property rights and public access would define media regulation for a generation, right up until a new technology, the internet, arrived to challenge everything all over again. By law, the FCC cannot censor, but it still enforces rules on obscenity, indecency, and profanity during hours when children might be watching. The bigger danger? Jawboning. When officials pressure broadcasters with veiled threats. The Supreme Court condemned this in NRA v. Vulo, 2024. Regulators cannot use their power to punish speech they don't like. Unlike broadcasting or cable, the FCC does not regulate internet content. In fact, the Supreme Court's Loper-Bright decision in 2025 ensured broadband would stay an information service, outside FCC's reach. That's why debates over net neutrality and online speech look very different from broadcast regulation. So with its power over content fading in the internet age, and critics on both sides calling it a relic, a simple question emerges. Why not just get rid of the FCC? It's a tempting thought for free market advocates who see it as a bureaucratic drag on innovation, and for free speech purists who see it as a potential censor. Yet the agency persists. The reason is that for all the criticism, the FCC remains an incredibly powerful tool, and both major political parties want to be the one to wield it. Take the Republican Party. Their platform generally calls for a lighter regulatory touch, wanting the FCC to step back and let the market dictate winners and losers, especially on contentious issues like net neutrality. They argue that deregulation unleashes investment and competition. However, they are not interested in dismantling the agency entirely. Far from it. The FCC's authority over broadcast decency standards, while weakened, remains a valuable tool for appealing to their social conservative base. More importantly, a Republican-controlled FCC holds the keys to approving massive media and telecommunications mergers. By greenlighting these deals, they can help shape a corporate landscape that they believe is more efficient and globally competitive. For them, the ideal FCC is less of a watchdog and more of a facilitator for industry growth. On the other side of the aisle, Democrats envision a much different and far more active FCC. They see it as the primary federal champion for the consumer. They want the agency to aggressively police the industry, fighting back against the scourge of robocalls, ensuring fair billing practices and protecting the privacy of consumer data. A core part of their modern platform is using the FCC to bridge the digital divide. This means directing funds and creating programs like the Affordable Connectivity Program to ensure that every American, regardless of their income or zip code, has access to affordable, high-speed internet. And when it comes to mergers, Democrats want an FCC that acts as a powerful antitrust check, scrutinizing deals that could lead to monopolies, higher prices, and fewer choices for the public. So you have two fundamentally opposed visions for the same agency. One side wants a referee that mostly stays on the sidelines. The other wants a referee that actively enforces the rules to protect the players. Because neither party wants to give up the power to enact its vision when it holds the White House, neither has any real incentive to abolish the FCC. The result is a perpetual state of conflict. The agency becomes a political football, its priorities and regulations swinging back and forth with each new administration. This creates a whiplash effect for the industry and the public. It leaves the FCC in a paradoxical state, weakened by political battles and constrained by legal challenges, but still utterly essential. It's too valuable for either party to dismantle, but too contested to ever act with complete freedom. It is an agency locked in a permanent tug-of-war, with the future of American communications pulled taut in the middle. The FCC sits at the crossroads of free speech, public safety, and political power. It may look like a relic of the broadcast era, but it's still deeply woven into America's communications system. So the question isn't whether we need the FCC. The real question is, what do we want it to be in the 21st century?